Hey, Aubrey, you just got back from Mexico. I know we talked about this a couple of days ago. Anything you'd do differently if you could go back?
Yes, so I don't know if I told you that we went through a hurricane
Oh
on
my
the way there.
gosh.
And if we had known there'd be a hurricane, we would have booked a different weekend for sure. But it worked out okay. We just drove through it and it was crazy. Torrential rains, really heavy
Wow.
hurricane level winds. And it was scary. The dirt in the desert, the sand of the desert was kicking up underneath as well as the hurricane clouds above.
Wow.
And like the windshield wipers could not go fast enough
Ooh,
to keep the
scary.
it was scary, but luckily we got through it. And then when we got to the beach, it had hit and had sort of ruined some things on the beach, lifeguard stands and things.
Okay.
But at least, and the waves were crashing way bigger than I've ever seen them there before. But then it calmed and we had a couple of great days on the beach. So it worked out.
Oh, amazing. I remember driving once in New Mexico in the US, and having a similar situation on the highway. It's scary, right? When your windshield wipers can't handle it, there's so much rain
Yes,
and you
it's
can't
so
see
scary. I
anything.
bought a
Yeah.
new car once and didn't think to test the windshield wiper. Not new.
Ugh,
I bought an old car that was new to me.
new
And
to
on
you.
the freeway, it started pouring rain, and I turned on the windshield wipers, and nothing. They didn't work at all. It
Oh
was so
no.
scary. So I had to just pull over on the freeway
That's
and wait.
terrifying.
It was so
That's
terrifying. I'm like,
terrifying.
please, no one hit me because
Oh my
I,
gosh. Wow, I love
I
it. Well,
survived.
before we get into today's episode, this is going to be good because we're doing grammar today. I know our listeners really want to up their grammar game, but guys, keep in mind that today's episode is on YouTube. So if you want to check it out over there, you can always go and see us recording this video, right, Aubrey?
Yes, for sure. You'll see all my hand gestures and crazy
Yes.
faces. I'm pretty dynamic when I talk.
All right, so who asked the question for today? Which listener was this from?
Yeah, this is a great question. And it's about past perfect, which I used when I was talking about that hurricane. So let me go ahead and read this question. It's from Julie Tang.
Okay.
And she said, do you guys have episodes on past perfect and future perfect? I've only seen present perfect. Also, if you're doing future perfect, I see that we use will. When do we use would? Ooh, I can see that Julie's, like you said, wanting to up her grammar game, wanting to understand why to use which tense. This is high level grammar, but it is important to know.
Yes. Thank you, Julie, for this question. And by the way, guys, we love your questions. So send them in to Lindsay at allearsenglish.com. We love creating this show for you. Send a good focused question. And what are we going to address today? We can't do everything in one
I know.
episode, right,
There is
Aubrey?
a lot in that question, right? So we are for sure going to cover, future perfect soon and will versus would. So be sure to follow so that you don't miss those
Yes.
episodes. And today we're going to dive in the very first part of her question about past perfect. And
Yes.
just to point out my answer to your question, I had
Yes.
said if we had known there'd be a hurricane, we would have done something differently, right? So
Right.
that's the past perfect.
Yeah.
If we had known, if something had been different at a point in the past,
Mm-hmm.
then something else, right? So this
Mm-hmm.
is a complicated grammar form, but we're going to break it down
Oh,
today so it's
yeah.
very clear how and when you can use it.
Yeah, we're going to make it clear. And then, as always, guys, we're going to show you when it matters, if it matters, right? And how to use it for connection. That's the key, right? So pay attention to the details today, take notes, but then at the end, we're going to show you, how to actually use this for our ultimate goal, which is that human connection. So good. So good.
Exactly right. And this is such good timing because just a few episodes ago, 1877, this
Mm-hmm.
came up when, remember, we were talking about how multiple tenses spice up a story. If you missed that episode,
Yes.
guys, for sure go check it out. And
Yep.
past perfect came up. I said I had misunderstood and thought she had owned this plant for a
Right.
long time, right? So now is where we do the dive into why did I use
Deep
past perfect?
dive. All right,
Yes.
deep dive time. Let's do it, Aubrey. Where do we start? What do we have
Yeah.
to know?
So, past perfect is used for actions that were completed before some point in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's talk about the formula a little bit, but that's really vital that you know when
Yes.
it's used. If you're taking a lot of English in, you're going to hear it. It's going to make sense that it's being used that way. But
Mm-hmm.
it is so helpful to break it down, to look at the formula, to understand why so that it all makes sense.
Okay, so does it matter if the subject is singular or plural? What do you think? Or
No,
is the
yeah.
formula always the same?
The
Yeah?
formula is always the same. Past perfect is one of the easiest tenses to create because of
Sweet.
that. It's always the word had always,
Yeah.
with the past participle, which
Okay.
is what makes it a little tricky because there are a lot of irregular past participles, right? You'll
Mm.
hear natives say, like, she had drink, she had swam. No,
Oh,
she
they make
had
mistakes,
drunk,
right?
she had swum, because the
Right.
past participle is
Swim, swam,
irregular.
swum. Yeah, I think that these past participles, guys, they come back to bite you if you
They
don't master them
do.
from the start. So we see these all throughout all the grammar tenses. So make sure you know them. This would be a good, smart use of your time, considering the 80-20 principle, to really learn these past participles, right,
For
Aubrey?
sure. Yes. And you made a really good point that it doesn't matter if the subject is singular or plural, that
Mm-hmm.
formula is always the same. So
Okay.
I had misunderstood, she had misunderstood, they had
We.
misunderstood.
Mhm.
That helps that you know for past perfect, it's always the same.
Love
Had
it.
with the past participle.
Well, that is a win. I love the idea of
Yes.
highlighting what is easy about this, right? Because you
Right.
guys can totally do this. We can handle this. All right, let's go a little deeper.
Yeah, so we want to talk about how you can use this at work to sound really intelligent and native, but also some key skills, clarifying misunderstandings and explaining when something goes wrong. That's the main time you hear natives use past perfect with friends and at work, and it's a skill you need to have.
Oh, yeah, because we need this. We don't want to have these misunderstandings. And if we see that there are misunderstandings with our colleagues, we want to clarify it right away,
Yes,
right? That's the key
exactly.
here. So good. All
Yeah,
right.
so
So,
first,
what's a scenario?
yeah, let's first talk about clarifying misunderstandings. Imagine a coworker comes up to you and says, I heard you're organizing a happy hour. Why didn't you invite me?
Ooh.
You need the language to be able to diffuse, clarify the misunderstanding. What would you
Mm-hmm.
maybe say, Lindsay?
You could say this. You had left for lunch when we talked about it. Of course, you're invited. Yeah.
Yes, right. So
Mm-hmm.
describing that, you need past perfect. You
For
had
sure.
left. So you just have had with the past participle. Oh, you
Mm-hmm.
had left for lunch
Yeah.
when we talked about it, right? And that
Right.
you're almost for sure going to need past perfect in a situation like that because you're describing something that was completed in the past
Mm-hmm.
when this other action in the past, when you and other coworkers decided to go to happy hour.
Yeah, and this helps the person feel included. You understand you can go back to that exact time period and what happened. Now, we could do another episode on this, Aubrey, but could we throw in already? Right? Could we throw in and say, "Oh, you'd already left for lunch already." We can do that,
Yes,
right?
you
Yes.
almost always can say already when you're using the
Okay.
past perfect because it's
Mm-hmm.
describing, it's maybe a little redundant, but not really. It just
No.
clarifies even more, right? I'm
Yeah, it
saying
clarifies.
something had
Yeah.
already happened when we did this, right?
Yeah. It feels
So
more
yeah,
natural. I think I
it's
would
definitely
I would put
appropriate.
yeah, as a native speaker, I think I would just tend to put that in there just for clarity and just to make it
And almost
clear.
for emphasis, right? Oh, you had
Right.
already left, like
Yes.
trying to emphasize, oh,
Yeah.
we didn't leave you out on purpose. You had already left. That's actually a
Exactly.
really good idea.
So important to know. Okay, now do we have a second way that we would use the past perfect at the office?
Yes, definitely. And they're very similar, right? To explain when something went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So often there is a misunderstanding when something went wrong. So these are very related, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's just a scenario. Something went wrong. For example, imagine you're telling a friend about a meeting you attended at work that you were late to, and you just
Mm-hmm.
want to describe it to the friend, right? What might you say, Lindsay?
Okay, you could say they had started before I arrived. And as Aubrey and I just said, you could put they had already started before I arrived, right?
Yes. And I want to point out pronunciation there. This is so native that when you said already, you sort of skipped the L and said like already. You
Oh,
don't really
yeah.
hear the L. This is very common, you guys, for native American English that
Yes.
we are saving time. We're skipping letters. So
Mm-hmm.
you might hear someone pronounce that L already, and you might hear it just like Lindsay just said already. I do that too already. We had
Oh,
already
for sure.
left just
We
to
just
save
don't have
time.
time.
It's faster.
Any sound that's slightly awkward, like already, it takes
Already.
too long for me to move from the L to the R, and so I
Totally.
don't do it. I just
Yep.
don't
Skip
bother.
it. Just skip it. Yes, or you might say the meeting had begun before I got there, right?
Yes. Yes. The
So we
meeting
just
had
same
already
thing. You've got
begun.
the
Mm-hmm.
subject and then had with your
Mm-hmm.
past participle. And this is where
Mm.
you might hear a native say it wrong. They might say the meeting had began before
Oh,
I got
yeah.
there because
Oh,
they
my
forget
gosh.
that the past participle is irregular for begin. It
Yeah.
should be the meeting had begun.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah, native we can talk about add this to a list of common native speaker mistakes for sure,
Oh
guys.
yeah,
But
the big
go
one.
back, learn your past participles because again, they come back to bite you. So good. All right, Aubrey, should we do a role play?
Yes, in this role play, you and I are debriefing after a meeting
Mm-hmm.
or debriefing. You'll hear that pronounced both ways. I
Debriefing.
think
Mm-hmm.
I think the emphasis on D is more common actually.
I think so too.
Debriefing.
Yeah.
As I said debriefing, I was like, that sounds
Debr-
wrong.
that sounds wrong. That sounds weird, right? We are
Debriefing.
debriefing after a meeting and we're expressing how those things went wrong, what went wrong,
Yeah,
right?
and just to define that really quick, if you guys have the app, you'll for sure see this. It just
Mm-hmm.
means a meeting to discuss how things went. We're going to debrief to discuss how did that go.
Oh boy. All right, here we go. Well, all right, let's get started.
All right, I'll start us off. Oh boy, that did not go well,
If I had known we were presenting today,
right? If they hadn't sprung it on us.
I tried to ask them to postpone, but it was too late. The client had already flown in for the presentation.
Ooh, good one.
Ooh,
Lots of good past
scary.
perfect there. I know that
Yeah.
would be terrible. Can you imagine you're preparing a presentation, but you're not ready and they
No,
spring it on you like, oh, we're ready now. Let's do it.
not
I'm not
good
ready.
because if you're making your slides, you've got all these mistakes on the slides, no formatting. Yeah, not good. Not good.
Yes. So let's go through this because we did something very native where we're cutting off the second part of the sentence. We do this all the time, right? You said,
Mm,
if I had known we were presenting today, and
right,
implied is the rest of the sentence, which would be like, I would have done something differently. But we
right,
often will do that. We'll interrupt each other or just stop, and the rest is implied.
right. But here you're not even, this isn't even an interruption, right? Instead, it's just a trailing
You're
off
trailing
and an
off.
assumption that we know what we're saying. We get the idea
Totally.
from the
And you
first
see
part of the
the,
sentence.
yep, you see the past perfect there. If I had known.
Right, right. And I think for me, naturally speaking fast, I would just say, if I'd known,
For
right?
sure. Yes, that's a really good point to point out that for
Yes.
past perfect, we often won't slow down and say the whole had. We use
Mm-hmm.
that contraction and say, if I'd known we were presenting today. Yes.
Exactly. But if it's in the negative, you have to say the full hadn't, right? So you said, right? If they hadn't sprung it on us, right?
Exactly. But again, a contraction there because I wouldn't say if they had not sprung it on us. No,
Right.
that
No. Oh,
sounds
it
really
is
strange.
true.
We're
True.
for
Yeah.
sure going to
Mm-hmm.
create that contraction and say if they hadn't sprung it on us.
Exactly. And then what did I say after that?
And then you said, I tried to ask them to postpone, but it's too late. The client had already flown. And this is exactly what you were talking about. It's so native to add already because we're talking about something that already happened. The client
Yes.
had already flown in.
Right. I love it. So good. So good. So, what's a takeaway for our listeners? I mean, what do we have to know? I always think of the past perfect as kind of the past of the past, right? Something that happened before the past, right?
Yes, right. That's a good
Yes.
way to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
You guys, for sure, you want to be able to use the past perfect, especially in these situations, to be able to clarify misunderstandings, describe how something went wrong.
Yep.
And this is something that is flagged in a native's brain. We
Yes.
know what it should sound like, and if the tense is used incorrectly, we do notice. So it's worth learning it. It's worth
Yes.
trying. But again, natives are just going to be happy you're trying to communicate. You guys know from us, connection, not perfection. But this is
Exactly.
one thing that's worth learning the past participles, learning when to use this because it is noticeable.
Yeah, so go back to those past participles, guys, that you left in your textbook somewhere 5 years ago, right? And
Totally.
go back, learn them, remember them, and then implement them into these moments of connection. It's so important here in the workplace situation. Qualify what actually happened. Why was that person not invited? You need the past perfect for that, right?
Exactly. Right.
Yeah,
And keep in mind, if you're using this correctly, you may be speaking better than a lot of natives because natives do mess up past participles. So that's a good little tip here is that don't stress about using the wrong past participle. It does happen. But for those situations like a job interview where you really want to impress and put your best foot forward, you want to know those past participles and use the correct one.
yeah, I love it. I love it. So good. Aubrey, thanks for hanging out today and for bringing up a little grammar for us here on All Ears English. We love it, as
Yes. So
always.
fun. Thanks, Lindsay. I'll see you next time.
All right, take care. Bye.